Oh, we're having such a good time.
I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Hi, it's in your face.
It's in your face.
And we're live. I'm Remy.
I'm Perry, and I am in a super duper positive mood.
Thought it was ants in his pants. There's literally ants
There
on
are
the
literally
table.
ants on the table.
Who knows?
Just crawling around on here in our new studio. Welcome everybody to the show. It's going to be another great one. Tonight, we are focusing on the, men. We tend to not consider, we don't exude the feelings that are available to us. And tonight we're going to be talking about why it's so important that men love themselves as a prerequisite to getting everything they're wanting. But before that, as with everything on our show, we're going to talk about...
Okay, I got it together.
We're going to talk about how to read the news, and then we're going to share some of the great news happening in the transgender community, and there is a shit ton. And then after that, we're going to get to the headline, which is why men need to love themselves as a prerequisite to getting everything they want. So let's get started. I got to stop watching the screen and instead watch that little dot right there because that's what they're looking at. Okay, let's get started. So in our news series, How to Read the News, we are talking about, well, as the title implies,
the news!
Yes, the news! And how to read it so that you don't create stories that create a negative reality for yourself, so that you don't end up being a curmudgeon.
Fuddy-duddy.
A fuddy-duddy, yes. A negative Ned or Nelly, as the case may be. And so the first one we're going to talk about... Now, I purposely did not share these on the website because some of them are extremely triggering stories.
They're potentially quite triggering stories if you read the actual articles.
Yes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post each story in the comment section of our show tonight so that it is not on the general wall of the Transamorous Network page so that people don't get freaked out reading this stuff and thinking that we're anti-trans.
Right.
Which actually happened several weeks ago. So this first one I'm going to publish now.
People are so sensitive.
I know, they're so sensitive.
Hi, Tamar, Mari, Andrea.
Hey, Tamar. Welcome to the show. Mari and Andrea, welcome. Where is the show?
I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what this thing's doing. Stand by, everybody.
Slightly technical difficulties here tonight.
It's interesting. That's not
keep it going.
Where is it? There it is. There's the live show. Okay, so I'm posting in the comments the first article. Go ahead and take a look at it. This article is about the headline is about what it's like to be humiliated, beaten, and abused as a transgender person in Russia. In Russia. And I picked this article because by the headline, I thought it was going to be one of the most negative stories you could possibly read as a transgender person.
Right.
However, when I read this article, it turns out that there was quite a bit of positive things that was happening to this person who was featured in this article. Yes, there are a lot of negative things, but the article was pretty...
But we're talking about not focusing on those things.
Thank you, Remy.
And learning how to pull the positive things out of those
That's
stories.
right. Now, of course, the optimal approach to reading the news is to not read negative news at all, because there's no value in confirming negative stories.
Right.
But if you must read the negative news, then knowing how to do what Remy just talked about is really valuable in maintaining the positive perspective that you could have, which will create the reality that you're wanting instead of the one that you're not wanting.
Well, it's important, and so I was... Perry sent me these articles yesterday and was like, can you read them before the show? And I'm like, well, we'll see, since I work both days and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I fit them in.
She made it work.
I made it work.
Which
and as I was reading this article, I was starting to get a little...
Upset?
Upset.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to stop myself and go, wait a minute, why am I reading this article for the show tonight to talk about how to read the news positively? So, how am I going to read this news positively?
What did you come to?
Well, what came to me, I guess the strongest was, isn't it great that it's being put out there and we are finally being aware of it and that this is going to potentially make change for people?
In Russia and elsewhere.
Right?
Yeah. I actually didn't think of that perspective. That's awesome. Yeah, and so another way you could read that is, isn't it great that I don't live in Russia?
Being very personal with it.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes. But even if you're reading the actual article itself, there are segments in here where they talk about this person, what was her name? Demidova, this transgender person, where positive things are happening to her in the midst of the negative things the article's talking about. For example, they talk about how, so her mother's dead, but they talk about how her father how her father disowned her, but then later in the article it talks about how her father is accepting her, brings her back into the house, and starts using her female name to refer to her. So in other words, he's acknowledging that she's transgender. Sure, he's having difficulty accepting the fact that his child is a woman.
But he
trying.
Comes from a place and a time and a world that wasn't talked about. Which brings me to another positive thing.
Yes.
Isn't it awesome that even amidst all that, she is still living her authentic self?
That's the other thing. And at the very end of the article, she talks about how she's determined to stay in Russia despite what she's experiencing, to live as kind of like a warrior for the transgender community there.
That's exactly how I saw her.
Yeah,
she's a warrior there.
Yes. And it's really interesting because she talks about this episode where she was accosted, I think on the subway or the train or something like that. And even though they focused on the fact that she was accosted and that she ended up beating up the guy who was trying to beat her up.
Positive. Sorry, we're in my book.
Exactly.
Step up and get beat down.
Exactly. She also mentions how the people around her came to her aid.
See?
Now, this is purportedly in a nation where transgender people are being murdered and where there are no laws supporting transgender people in Russia.
Any LGBTQ
Thank
laws.
you.
There's no support from this article's
perspective.
report is that there is no laws whatsoever benefiting anyone of the queer community or the LGBTQ or
And so there is lots of positive perspective directly.
She's a Russian transgendered Wonder Woman.
Well, yeah, and she's doing great, and that's another point actually. She's seeing her own experience as not necessarily super negative. I mean, how could she? If she's choosing to stay there and fight, it's a great thing.
She's something like a gangster, and I'd like to applaud her.
Exactly.
It's my kind of girl.
Now, I had promised Remy that instead of dominating this conversation, that I would take breaks from time to time and entertain and respond to comments from the audience. So let's see what you guys are talking about.
Devin has joined us, saying that she's running late. Who's a warrior? So if you scroll up just a little bit, there's an article that we posted in this group. It's trigger warning for those are some people. As we were talking about how to read news that would be viewed as negative in a positive way and to not create negative stories that can control your life.
Yes,
right? Because you could read this article just as it is and start thinking of all the horrors that trans women in Russia and now in America, and then you get more and more personal with it.
Yes.
Right?
That's right.
And then that's when you start to create a story about yourself and the world that you're living in.
That's correct. And it's interesting because I was talking with a one-on-one client today about this tendency we have to focus on the negative. It's almost like a habit where we are trained by society to believe that it's just normal to focus on the negative, and we don't have practice focusing on the positive, and that's why it's so easy to focus on the negative instead of the positive. So we're talking about interpreting.
Practice makes perfect.
Yes, Remy. So we're talking about this new muscle we're developing called reading the news to find the positive elements so that you can begin to practice developing the muscle of seeing positive things in your reality.
Yes.
So let's look at the other article.
Hold on.
You sure?
Devin says, so who's a warrior? That is why my older sister taught me how to fight when I was little. A woman needs to learn how to fight, just not defend themselves. Fight so hard that nobody wants to mess with you. Right, you gotta go crazy.
You gotta go crazy.
That's why Devin's my bitch, too.
So, is there anything else?
No, that's where we are at the moment.
Okay, let's go to the next.
We got an applause from Andrea.
Oh, thank you, Andrea. So the next article we're going to talk about, I got to post it, like I said. So as we talk about these, I'm posting these articles in the comment section so that you can read these articles for yourself. Let's close that because we don't need that anymore. And post this one here. There we go. And this article is in the it talks about the United States. It's talking about how the Republican National Convention is siding with and approving a resolution that supports President Donald Trump's transgender military ban.
Are we surprised? My first response.
Thank you, Remy.
Okay, and you would expect anything different from the people who actually put him in office?
That is a wonderful way to read this article. It's like
happiness, right?
Yes, kind of this is not even news, right? It's like,
not really.
It would be news if the Republican National Convention came out saying we do not agree with President Trump. That would be shocking news.
That would be news. Or the Democratic National Convention said they agreed with him.
That would be
something
shocking
like
news
that.
too.
That would be more shocking.
Exactly. This isn't really news. This is just it's all you can almost read this.
Well, the article even says, well, we're used to seeing that especially the Republican will vote in favor of whoever is in office in their party.
In their party. So, of course, they're not going to come out opposing Trump's proposed transgender ban. They're going to come out supporting it. And you could almost, if you look at the way the article is written, you could almost argue that Metro Weekly, the online newspaper that's publishing this article, is doing this on purpose, like trying to engender your anger in order for you to click on this article and read it, because when you're reading this article, you're being exposed to the ads that are on this website, and they're making money as a result of you being angry and reading this thing.
Oakland, hashtag hella queer. And hella proud. Yes,
Speaking of ads.
That's funny.
So it's interesting.
Sorry.
There's
I'm from Oakland. That's extra funny.
That's true.
Extra
it
funny.
Is.
Hashtag hella queer.
So there's actually nothing newsworthy about this article. It's actually something that we should all expect, that the Republicans are going to side with what Donald Trump has said, especially.
And it's a horrible photo.
It is yes.
I know. Of all the ones to choose.
Yeah. So
it's not newsworthy. Move on.
Yes. So let's move on. Thank you, Remy. We're going to move on. The next.
Let's see. Tamar says, knee him to the groin fixes it all. Then Devin says, then you step on their necks a couple of times. It's a teaching tool.
You girls are so violent.
We, as you see, are survivors.
Yes, you are.
We don't crawl in the corner and bitch.
Speaking of bitching.
Oh, perfect segue.
So this next article, which I just posted in the comment section, is from a I don't know if this is a blog or newspaper or whatever. It's called Them. Presumably, it's a LGBTQ organ, and they're talking about Rose McGowan. Rose McGowan, I do not know.
She was in Charmed. Do you remember?
Oh yes, the magic people.
Yeah. She after Shannon Doherty was killed off. She was brought in to be the third sister.
Oh.
She was the hidden long-lost sister, half angel, half witch.
Okay, got it. Okay.
She used to date, what's that?
Help us out.
The rock singer.
Who did Rose McGowan used to date? Let us know. I know one of y'all know. So
I was going to say it very quickly. Rolf, the magic people. I know, right?
What?
Andrea's laughing.
Oh, the magic. So look, y'all. Rose McGowan was reading from her book Brave, which is a really cool book.
Marilyn Manson, thank you.
She was married to Marilyn Manson.
She dated? I don't know if she was married, but she was with.
Wow. Okay,
Marilyn
then. Well, that doesn't surprise me because of who she presents herself as in these interviews. She's like out there, which is awesome. Anyway, she was doing this book signing event and I was almost going to say accosted, but that's that's kind of a judgmental word. She was a person from the audience who happens to be trans, got up and presented an alternative view to Rose McGowan. And Rose McGowan kind of, this person in the audience got heated, and then Rose McGowan got heated, and then they kind of played off each other, and it turned into a shouting match. And so this website, them.
Okay, so yes, this website, I don't know this website, but I have a feeling, yes, I agree with you that it must be trans and or LGBTQ related, because it's just from reading it, you can tell where the author of this, the journalist here, is coming from.
Pretty biased.
Yeah.
Right? Pretty angry. And they couched the article is steeped in the writer's opinion about what actually happened. And so it's really important. The reason why I wanted to share this one is because it's important to recognize where the writer and where the organization is coming from when you're reading their material.
Right, because they're all leaning it with their own agenda. Everyone has their own agenda.
That's right.
Right? So if you're to read, if you were to read that exact same article that we just talked about.
Yes.
Right, the Republican National Convention. Now, if that was written from, say, a Democratic point of view, it's going to be written in a certain way. And if it's written from a Republican view, a very different way. Perspective other way.
That's right.
And if you get it out of, Pagan Weekly, it's going to be really fucking different.
That's exactly right. And so it's really important to understand where you're getting your material and the perspective that source is bringing to the topic that you're reading about.
Thank you, Andrea. She says, the bottom of the article says that the author is a freelance journalist and trans woman. There's always bias.
Yeah, there's always bias. She is a freelance journalist and a trans woman. And so she's featured in a lot of articles. But it's interesting when you read this article, the strong perspective that the author is taking on this event. Mm-hmm. If you actually go and watch the video where Rose McGowan goes off and the trans woman responds, in my opinion, it's a different perspective. It's a different. I felt different about it, a much more objective perspective. And one of the things I want to talk about with regard to what happened with this interchange is, so Rose McGowan was rejecting the label cis as a cis woman, and she was claiming that is an attempt by transgender people who are transgender, to diminish or to demean women, as opposed to distinguishing women who come into the world at physically representing, vaginas and natural boobs.
Versus,
yes, versus a trans person who comes into the world presenting, in this case, male, but is actually a woman, and so does whatever that person needs to do to become who she is. And it was interesting because I felt she kind of had a point. It's like this idea of cis het or cis male or cis woman is it seems like it's designed to distinguish trans women from the other kind of woman.
Isn't that exactly what it's doing?
Yes, I think it is. And
I mean, what else would it be other than to distinguish someone who is cis and born and identifies with what they, right?
I know. And
again, do we like labels?
That's the thing. Yes.
But are we in a society where they don't understand what the fuck you're talking about unless you're very, very specific?
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
So it's just really, it was really interesting how that portion of this came up, where this label cis was seen as a pejorative, kind of like a curse word or a slur, like nigger, for example. Cis could be seen by a woman who is, how do you say it? A woman who has, I'm sensitive to potentially offending audience members when I try and describe this, but like a woman who comes into the world with a vagina, a cis woman. some cis women are rejecting the label of cis, and in their rejection, claiming it could be seen as, in their rejection, they're saying that trans women are not women.
Right. So and that argument can be two things. Are they rejecting and saying that trans women are not women, or are they saying trans women are women? So why do we need to differentiate at all?
Exactly.
And I think there's probably people on both sides of that argument as well.
And Remy brings up a good point about reading articles like this. There are always at least two sides to a perspective, and there's always a positive way and a negative way to interpret what you read. And you're much better off coming away with a positive interpretation of what you read rather than a negative one. And since all stories are made up anyway, why not make up a positive story if that's going to make you feel better about what you're reading?
Edit it your own way.
Exactly.
Let's see. Devin says that Rose McGowan and Marilyn Manson were actually married for 3 years.
They what?
Tamar says, according to the Pope, we, trans women, have more power than nuclear weapons and have the ability to bring about the end of the world. We're awesome like that. Yes, we are, and we do have that kind of power. I am so confused about this altercation, says Devin. Just the altercation between Rose, right?
Yes.
Devin says, Rose M needs to get it together because one interview she's for trans women and the next she's against trans women and back and forth.
It's crazy.
Andrea says, I understand labels. We do need labels. However, I also see how certain labels will and have isolated many different groups of people. That's a very good point.
Yeah,
it's absolutely true.
It totally is true.
And Max says, honestly, cis makes language easier, but I have a person on Facebook that frequently uses cis essentially as a derogatory term.
Wow. That's what Rose is saying, is that she perceives the word cis as a derogatory word applied to women.
Well, and I mean, I'm sure it's all about the intention of the person saying it. And that's what it boils down to. And then how the person receiving it interprets it. That's what it boils down to.
Isn't that true with everything?
Because trans can be used in the same way.
So can the N-word.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
So can bitch. And all the other fun words I like to use.
This is going pretty well.
Tamara, I agree with you. You're not in an easy place, Perry. You and you're trying to be sensitive, right?
Thank you, Tamara.
That's why I always say the only difference between cis and trans is cis women have innies and trans women have outies at birth. That's the only difference. Andrea says, my grandma always said there are 3 sides to every story. His side, her side, and the truth. Switch around genders and it still fits.
Exactly.
Max says, well, and I mean, most of the times you don't necessarily need to be able to specify in using cis, etc. But I mean, realistically, sometimes you need to. I can't get past that. Realistic, sometimes you need to use them. I mean, when I was just now trying to describe, say, not something, say something effective. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
There's all these things popping up on my screen at the same time.
Look at this. Look at this comment by Devin.
That's the moon.
Oh, that's the moon? I thought that was a vagina.
Oh, maybe.
It's funny. Okay, let's get back to the topics. So that's our segment on how to read the news. We're gonna have one of those.
I thought it was a triple moon. Maybe
I thought it was a vagina. Devin, tell us what that symbol you put up was. Was it the triple moon or was it a vagina? So every episode we're going to have a how to read the news section because I think it's valuable as a training aid to show specifically.
It's a badge.
That's what I thought.
No, it's the moon. I'm on your wavelength. Andrea, I love you. You're on his wavelength.
So now we're going to talk about the positive stories. So Remy posted this amazing video of this trans person who is apparently a writer of some sort, and maybe of some repute, some fame.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah, I never heard of her though.
No.
Oh, I should say I never heard of him as he was presenting as a male.
Right.
but apparently she when she was...
This is her coming out video, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so this is her coming out video. It's
touching
and
intense.
Beautiful. Well spoken.
Very well spoken. I shouldn't speak for Remy, but I loved it.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I shared it with
great.
you instantly.
Yeah.
My friend Thorne actually shared it on his Facebook.
Oh.
He happens to be a trans man.
Awesome.
And so I watched it and was like, oh shit. And so shared it and watched it. And
It's beautiful.
now we're talking about it.
Yes. So this is the second segment of our show. It's going to be about the positive stories happening in the trans community and the world in general. And this is one of them. This wonderful trans woman who has...
Right?
What?
Andrew says, not only was it an intelligent video, but her lipstick was on point. Hi, baby girl.
So awesome. Yeah, she was awesome. And so, and brave.
Very brave.
Very brave. Obviously, because in my male perspective, I could see how it would be very challenging to do a video looking like she looks. I'm just going to say it.
No, yeah. She has literally just started her transition. And I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the power, and I think she knew exactly what she was doing, presenting like this in public.
Not in a studio.
Not in a studio.
Right,
this is like in a park or a city bench or something.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And I don't know how much they had to edit or cut up the video, but she's very well spoken. In
Absolutely.
Can't even tell. She might even be reading, but maybe not. So that was that. So my point of bringing up this video was that
everyone should see it. It's awesome.
Yes, there are so many of these things happening around the world, and I think this is in Texas. Isn't this in Texas? Is it in Texas? I can't remember.
Was it Texas?
I think it's Texas.
Yes.
Yes, it is Texas.
Because he says he lives in Texas and goes to church.
Yeah, that's right.
All of the things that Texans are due.
So it's an amazing story. Yeah, it's an amazing story, and I just loved it. So the next one we're going to talk about is I want to post this one in the comment section too, because this is like taking it to the next level. Where's the comment? There it is. Let's put this one in here. So this article or this news story is about this trans woman. Yeah, again in Texas, who transitioned.
So
please.
She, before transition, was mayor of this town
in Texas,
and has now transitioned and is rerunning for mayor.
Correct. She was pro tem, which means she was put in place as a result of the previous mayor leaving office. So she assumed the duty presenting as male. Decided to transition, like Remy said, and now is running for the fully appointed seat, the elected seat. And this could be I think they said
for office in her own right.
Yes. And what's interesting, again, in this town, the people are treating her as if it's no big deal. In Texas, no big deal. That's pretty freaking awesome. Very, very awesome. And then
bad bitches in the news. I'm loving it.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then there's another one we're going to post. This one in Vermont, where we may see the first transgender governor. And not only, I just posted it, guys, so take a look. Not only might this person be the first transgender governor. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. She also is a CEO of a local public utility. And she also transitioned while she was in that role. So she became the CEO of this public utility and then transitioned and now is running for governor. That's huge.
Wait, is that the other one or this one?
That's the other. This is the new one.
Oh,
so there's the mayor and then the governor, two different people. And she also is being treated like this is no big fucking deal. She's an amazing leader. She actually, this utility that she's running as a CEO was about to fail before she came into the job. And now that she came into the job,
she saved the company.
She saved the company. And
she fit to save Vermont.
Exactly. She's just doing so freaking amazing.
Be out there kissing babies with her tailored blazer. They went in on how fabulous she looks.
Right? She does look fabulous.
With her hair.
She does look fabulous.
And her professional look.
And actually, that's a great...
Makes Danica Rome, they said.
Oh, that's this other one.
So a different one?
Yes, this is a different one. And thank you for the segue, because... So I'm a male, so I'm going to have certain perspectives.
Confused.
And I have to say that this next one, this trans woman, is beautiful. Brianna Westbrook. I'm posting it in the comments section now. Brianna Westbrook is running for Congress. And they claim that she could be the next Danica Rome. Danica Rome, you might remember from our Facebook post, recently won her Senate seat or congressional seat in some state whose name I can't remember. It doesn't matter. She won. Virginia. It was Virginia.
It was down in the South.
She beat that terrible Republican guy who had been in office for many, many years. And now people are claiming that this person, Brianna Westbrook, might unseat the person that she's running against. The article says that there are several trans people running in this race, but she's the front runner, which I thought was really interesting. And so, just as we have said this before, President Trump is one of the best presidents this nation has seen because he has triggered so many changes on the left, including more women running for office, more women speaking out, the destruction of the framework that has kept obscene sexual harassment and demeanment of women in Hollywood and other industries. He, as a result of him being in office, all of this stuff is coming to the surface, including all these trans women and trans men running scum rises. That's right. That's exactly right. And so we're seeing this this is another way of looking at society in a positive light. Trump has triggered all of these amazing things that are happening, and we're soon going to have the electoral makeup of our nation radically transformed as a result of all the women and the trans women and gay people and trans men that are running for office and winning.
Do I hear Greek Senate?
Hey, what's a Greek Senate? What's that? What is it? I don't know.
How the ancient democratic people of Greece.
How did
it wasn't a singular person; it was a senate.
Oh yes. Yes. Little obscure reference there for the both of us. Maybe you two. Maybe you got it also. So yeah, we did really good about coming up with good news. There's all kind of good news coming around. It's so awesome to see. There is so much to be positive about as a trans person or as a trans attracted person. Matter of fact, so I was at the business offices of the Transamorous Network a couple weeks ago and ran into this guy who I didn't know was trans attracted. And my friend Mark introduced me to this guy and said he owns a Transamorous Network. And the guy was like, "What's the Transamorous Network?" And we told him, and he was like, "Wow, I guess I'm trans attracted." And it turns out he had dated a trans person several years ago and now has been in a 3-year relationship with this cis woman. And he's struggling in his relationship because he still has this desire to be with trans women. And so he looked at the Transamorous Network and called me up and said, "I want to have coffee." And we had coffee last Sunday. And he was talking about the struggle. And we had this like man-to-man simpatico going on where the things that he was talking about, his relationship were the same kind of experiences I was having in my relationship. And the bottom line is he felt inspired by learning more about what we do here at the Transamorous Network and realizing that he's not alone in his transamory. It was just really a fabulous conversation. Yeah. Really cool.
It all comes together. The universe brings it all together.
It all comes together. Okay, so now, you want to take some more comments before we go to the headline?
Nothing really there.
Just a lot of clicks. Okay.
Andrea says, when Perry said that Trump was the best president, Remy, your face, you cracked me up, girl.
It's really hard for people to
send him my way.
It's really hard for people to get that, but it is. I believe it's actually an accurate statement in many, many respects. Okay, let's talk about men. We talked a lot about trans women. Let's talk about some men. So, 2/3 of our audience online is made up of trans attracted men, believe it or not, on all of our properties. And so we are this year focusing even more on transamorous and trans attracted men.
Always the target audience.
It always has been. You're right. In an effort to that hasn't happened in a while. We lost our connection, but we're back.
Hasn't happened in the middle of a show ever.
Yeah, never in the middle of the show. Sorry about that little technical glitch. That's because we don't have our corporate connection like we do at our offices. So expect some technical difficulties every once in a while because we're recording from a home location. Anyway, just like this guy I met at coffee said, there is benefit to us supporting these men because as men come out and own their transamory, it can have a transformative effect, no pun intended, on the transgender community. Because as more transamorous and trans-attracted men come out and own who they are, that means there are more active people like Jonathan and Troy supporting people like Remy and many of the people watching our show today.
Absolutely.
So we here at the Transamorous Network assert that in order for you to get what you want, men, trans-attracted men, including that transgender partner that you're pining for, you have to love yourself. And in order to, a lot of positive speakers and spiritualists talk about how important it is to love yourself, but they never really talk about how do you do that. So first of all, what does love yourself mean? Well, what it means is being able to appreciate the positive aspects of who you are. Being able to identify that you are more than just the human being sitting around.
Truly beginning to love yourself is learning to find and appreciate and love the things that aren't ultimately the most beautiful parts of yourself. Exactly. And recognizing that those aspects of yourself are just as valuable as the aspects of yourself that you think are positive or strong. And so how do you do this? Well, you start with the easy things that have nothing to do with you. Start by creating stories about the things that you like, about life, about your personal life. Stay away from you, about your job, about the person you're with, about the things you like to do. Tell those stories. And as Remy said, as you start telling those stories, you become more conscious of the negative stories and the connection of one story to another that leads you to a self-discovery that eventually gets you to the point where you're confronting the really deep stories that you have. Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. You start unraveling the top stories and start editing. And, and again, like Perry says, you just start by tell yourself a story about whatever. I don't know, give me something.
Okay, so like if you're a guy, you can talk about how you loved the Super Bowl, how fun that was to watch the Super Bowl.
Well, that wasn't what I was asking.
Or you're talking about more personal?
Just give me, I don't know, you're going to lose my train of thought now.
Okay.
What I was trying to say is, so you have a story, tell yourself the story as you have it.
Okay.
Period.
Okay, so I'm fat. How is that a story?
Okay.
A good example?
There, sure.
Okay.
And tell the story, I'm fat or I'm overweight or whatever, and tell it as you have it right now.
I'm fat, and trans women are not going to like fat men because I know the only people that they go to, especially the hot ones, are men with six-pack abs. And I don't have six-pack abs. There's a story.
Now there's a story. Now you want to figure out, okay, how do I start to tell this story in a way that makes me feel good? What about this story makes me feel really bad?
Good job. So, so I'll play the role of the person.
Sure, or let you guys figure it out. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, go give it a shot.
The parts that I like about being fat. I love eating. Eating is fun. I really like how I roll around in bed. I think the more cushion, the more pushing. Are those good stories?
Right? Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Big and cuddly.
That's right. Then what? What do I do next?
And then you start to figure out where you can replace and how you can edit those positive parts into the negative part and where you can change that feeling, that emotion, and it just starts to build from there. Because why you feel the way you feel about being big is going to start unraveling in the next story, and then the next story, then the next story.
Very
and
good.
maybe the truth to that, why you have a problem, or why you feel like someone your size could never get someone like you desire, then the answer to that story is somewhere way down here.
Oh my God,
that made
Remy.
sense.
That made total. I'm hearing you, girl.
It's
and
because
you're
it's
spot
way,
on.
way down here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's so far back, and it might be your childhood,
Yep.
something you observed your parents or whatever,
Yep.
and, you know, that you have no conscious memories of.
Yep.
And it's not until you start to unravel all that other shit above it that you find that story.
So Remy just spoke gold to you men. This is exactly the process that's available to you to change your stories and create an environment where you just spontaneously run into the trans woman of your dreams. And that will happen. But it won't happen tomorrow because you have to soothe the momentum of the stories that Remy just talked about and change those stories. And that takes a while. And so learning to be patient with that process is the key, is part of the key to changing the stories, your negative stories, into positive ones. Let's take some comments.
Sure. Welcome, Amy, if you're still with us. Good to see you. Congratulations on your engagement. Devin says, I created a positive story about shaving my legs. Now they silky smooth. Manifestation. Devin says, I'm fat and everyone loves it, including me.
Nice.
She also says, fat people don't wrinkle as much as skinny people. There's a positive
There's
story.
a great positive story.
You're right, absolutely.
Exactly.
And Andrea says, oh, that's not just gold to just men. The advice is wonderful for everyone. And it is. And thank you for catching that.
It is.
We have a goal.
We do have a goal.
I've always said this message is for everyone.
It is. It's for everybody.
If you just replace words where you need to.
That's exactly right.
Just saying.
Yeah, very good, Andrea, for picking that up. All right. So my wife has a meeting here at 6:30.
Okay.
And we have gone really far, which is great.
We should wrap up then.
Yeah, let's wrap up.
As much fun as we're having.
Oh, we're having good fun.
Oh, we are.
This is probably one of the best
Jolly
shows
good.
ever. Jolly good. Thank you all for watching. I've thoroughly enjoyed our time together, and I loved your comments. They're fantastic. Thank you so much for participating.
Bella, you're so last minute. I love you. Sorry you couldn't join us. Good to see you. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.